please reconsider allowing 250 some odd units going into this area that is currently zoned for only 40. It's one thing to build 40 single family homes on 40 acres, okay, but right now, New Hampstead, Buena Vista, that intersection is difficult already. Throwing in the Palisades exit 11 as well, just putting 250 units in this area is going to destroy people's way of life, and that's, for a bunch of developers to make money on it, it's not right. So please consider the people who have moved to this area specifically for a quiet suburban way of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Is there anyone else?
Yes. Yehuda Zorger, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Hi, Yehuda Zorger, 1 Alpha Lane, Airmont, New York. I would just like to say, as many communities and towns throughout America have changed over the years because of needs in a community, many people have built single-family homes and many developments for seniors, but for the young families that only need 1 or 2 bedrooms, at this moment, it's almost impossible for them to buy anything in Rockland County. So I'm a strong proponent, and I believe housing for young families starting their families in Rockland would be a positive addition to this county, and it's a necessity, and I hope you guys approve it.
Thank you, Mr. Zorger.
Pat Gazor, go ahead, unmute yourself, please.
Hi there, my name is Pat Gazer. I live at 984 Route 45, Pomona, New York. And I am getting such conflicting feelings with what I'm hearing. People want more building, and it sounds like they want 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, but I really started off wanting to talk about the golf course next to the baseball stadium, where you are planning, it looks like from what I checked, 72 acres of pristine land is going to be built on. And to make it easier to digest, it's being done in like 6 or 7 stages. You're planning on 117 buildings with 534 units with 2,460 bedrooms. What on earth are you planning to do to Pomona? It sounds like you're taking the overcrowded Muncie area, the overcrowded Spring Valley area that it sounds like now nobody wants to live there, and you're dumping it in Pomona and getting rid of our beautiful, pristine lands. Who is this for? We're starting to feel like the Ukraine here in Pomona. People are salivating, looking at our pristine land and seeing what they can build and who they can bring into this area. Last week, there were people from other areas that were commenting on, they were so excited to see these apartments where their children and their children's children would be able to live. And I'm telling you, we people in Pomona, yes, we don't mind thoughtful building, but for you to plan thousands of people moving in next to the baseball stadium, you gotta be kidding me. The traffic we have on 45 is already horrendous. Looking at the building that you are planning along the Palisades Parkway, you have huge stores there. Where are the trucks going to come from to get to those stores? Can't get on the Palisades. They can go on 306. They can go on Route 45 as they have been. They can go on 202. What the heck? We really have to open our eyes. And who is supposed to be living in this building back to the golf course area? Is it going to be like the people of Pomona, people of color, people of different religions, people of different ethnicities? I certainly hope so. And I hope to see something like that in writing. I remember a parcel 2 parcels away from my house that was for sale. And I called up and I asked the realtor, I was just interested in the price. She heard my name and she said, you can't afford it. How dare you? I cannot believe that discrimination, and that was years ago, that discrimination goes on, but it opened my eyes again. How are we going to ensure that anything you build is open to a variety of people, to the people that are presently in Pomona? I have people of color living across the street. We adore them. I happen to be white and I'm Christian. My next door neighbor is Jewish. We would do anything for each other. We're not a closed community, and please don't dare think of putting one into Pomona. That's not fair, and we don't want it. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else at this time who wishes to speak?
That's it. Go ahead, Mr.
Very
George.
good. Then, anybody have a motion to make? You have a second? Second, motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, second by Deputy Hospital. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? With a vote of 5-0, the public hearing is hereby closed. Just remind everybody that there will be a written comment period that will close on March 28th, 2022. All written comments must be received at the office of the town clerk by 5 p.m. that day. Email submissions are permissible to the town clerk within that time period. Thereafter, the town's professional planning team will review all public comments and written submissions, provided within the time frame as noted. And thereafter, within the time frame provided by law, a proposed finding statement, proposed final zoning plan amendments will be prepared by the town's professional planning team for appropriate action by the town board. The exact dates for those actions will be duly noticed for the public to follow after the town's professionals have completed their work on those documents. Thank you, everybody, for your participation in this meeting, in this hearing. We'll move on now to order for discussion of the FIS on Watchtower petition. I know we have here from Watchtower, and we have Councilman Lawson, I believe, is here on Zoom, and his time might be limited, so I want to discuss this at this time. As we recall, on Monday, we opened the public hearing on the zoning amendments on the Watchtower petition. We discussed the FEIS briefly. Watchtower's representatives were present and asked us to take action on the FEIS. They requested that we move to accept the FEIS, which would allow it to be circulated for public comment going forward. I'd like at this time to discuss that and get a consensus of the board and either make a motion tonight or pick a date next week for another hearing, not a hearing, I'm sorry, for a meeting, and perhaps for Zoom, for everyone's convenient time. So let me open it up to the town board. Anybody? I want to discuss the FEIS and Watchtower's estimates to accept. We have actually, let me start off, we have George Lithgow, who is our attorney on this matter, present. I'm going to ask Mr. Lithgow if you can just give us a 2-minute status of this.
George, go ahead. Gone. Mr. Gailey, would you like to try to reach Mr. Lithgow? You want to text him or something?
Yep, I will try to reach him right now.
He's already, yeah. Well, let's talk in the meantime. What is everybody's thoughts? Watchtower is asking that we accept the FEIS. We've had a chance to review it. And where do we as a board stand?
Mr. Supervisor,
Yes, Mr. Lithgow.
I had a little bit of trouble with my headset. Basically, let me just summarize where you're at. You have received a draft of the FEIS from the applicant. The document has been given review by your consulting team. Generally, it addresses the issues that were raised during the public hearing. The one issue or one concern that I have about proceeding forward with this is that there has been discussion about the building height and whether the building height should be modified from what is proposed and has been studied in the BIS. If that were to proceed forward with the board's, if that's the desire of the board, proceed forward with that alternative, the FEIS will require some revision.
I'm sorry, will require what?
The FEIS will require revision
Okay.
to reflect what will become the proposed action, which would be a conforming height alternative that has been studied as an alternative, but the responses that have been drafted by Watchtower address their proposed action. So before it actually circulates, we would want it to be revised to reflect the action that the board is considering adopting. So there would be need for revision. I think those revisions are relatively straightforward, but there would be benefit to having a discussion of that with the board at a separate meeting.
That would be, just so I understand, that would be if we move to accept it tonight with the conforming height alternative.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on this issue, Mr. Lefebvre?
On the question,
Well, right now, the FEIS is proposing that the buildings be 6 stories in height. The alternative would be conforming height, which would be 4 stories. So we basically could do one of, Mr. Lefebvre for a long time, was one of 3 things. We can accept the FEIS with the 6-story buildings. We can accept the FEIS with the alternative, which would be 4-story buildings, in which case Mr. Lefebvre has indicated that our professionals will have to make some revisions and send it back, or we could not accept it. Would those be the 3 options before us?
Yes.
Okay. Hopefully that clarifies.
yes, I think.
Then you can accept the revisions. That's a good question. The question is, if we accept it with the revisions, what would be the process? Is there a need for public hearing, or just our professionals revise it and bring it back to the board, and then what action do we have to take?
There is no public hearing. There is no public comment on the FEIS unless the board so desires. So this would simply be a process between you and your consultants. You would review the changes and authorize it to be circulated if the changes adequately address the proposed action that you believe is the best action for the town.
Thank you. I'll note that we have representatives of Watchtower present. I'll give them at this time a chance to speak and answer any questions the board may have.
I'm sorry. Keith King with Watchtower. So we really appreciate you giving us attention twice this week. This is very much appreciated. We started this process about 3 years ago now, and we were working through the DEIS earlier this year. If everything worked out perfectly as procedure, probably August 21st last year, we would have been talking about the FEIS. But it's a complicated project. There's a lot of things to consider. So obviously, it's time to consider the details. We're now about 212 days out from that, and the town, Mr. Litko included, have spent a tremendous amount of time to try to consolidate all of the comments. And there have been comments from the public, and from the agencies, and interested parties, interested agencies that are involved in this process. And it's really been remarkable to see how we've been able to get through the addressing of all of those comments. There were just 2 that were made by BFJ, who's been called upon by ROSA to make comments. And twice they made comments. One, they said, we thank the applicant for their general approach to the layout and the proposed site plan and the professional nature of the DEIS submission. The second one in their letter that they just submitted on Monday was that the applicant's done a very professional job advocating for its own interests and detailing the environmental impact of the proposed site plan. We think that as a result of everybody's hard work, we've developed a very good plan that satisfies all of the environmental concerns. The one thing that we are concerned about the proposal that is on the table here, just to clarify, is that pulling that one string out of the sweater as it is doesn't unravel the whole sweater and just do a ball of yarn. And because the study that's been done has studied the proposed project its impact on wetlands, its impact on community character, its impact on transportation, its impact on the visual vistas around the site, et cetera. So what we don't want to go down the route is restudying completely another alternative proposal that kicks this can down the road another year before we can reach conclusion. What we were thinking was possible based on the Monday night meeting was that the town could accept the proposal, the FEIS, take it to the county for them to finalize their GML review. Then it comes back to your board and you make a decision. You approve it, you disapprove it. You approve it with modifications, or you accept overrides, you don't accept overrides of the GML review from the county. It's totally your prerogative. And Watchtower's a client said, as the sponsor of the project, has said, we will make our decisions as a result of what the town board decides on this project. Mr. Weissman made a great comment 2 weeks ago. I remember the meeting where he said, it's not a matter of this project or nothing. It's this project or something else, something like the water dam project that was before us. And we respect the fact that anyone could develop this property, but would someone else build a live-work community that won't put so much traffic on Sterling Mine Road as this one's proposed? Well, another developer put a geothermal energy source that 99% of the energy that's needed to heat and cool the plant is not using fossil fuels. They put 120,000 square feet of solar panels on the roofs of the buildings for battery storage in order to soften and lessen the impact on the orange and Rockland utilities. Will they plant another 9,500 trees on the lot after the development is done? So we really think we have a win-win situation, both for Ramapo as well as for the project sponsor. So we respect that it's your board's determination on which way this project goes for the benefit of the community. We respect that. Our main concern is just not kicking the can down the road another year before we can get to the point of making that decision. And we really, really appreciate your time considering this tonight, and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Katie. Any questions for Mr. Katie from the board? None? Very good. Are we prepared to, somebody prepared to make a motion? Okay. Just to be a motion to accept. Course of action is, as I think we discussed, Mr. Lipko, accept the FEIS as is. We can accept it with the conforming building height alternative, which would require some revisions when we FEIS. Well, let me phrase it, the 4-story option versus the 6-story option. Let me ask Mr. Lipko, that was his advice.
Could you repeat the question, please?
The question is, if the alternative height was studied in the FEIS, why would we need to make amendments to the FEIS?
Because it would become the proposed action, and while it is studied not as clearly or thoroughly as the current proposed action. So the visual impact analysis is, if you will, secondary. It does look at the qualitative impacts, does not look at the quantitative impacts in terms of the amount of disturbance and visibility from the site from surrounding properties with the same degree of precision as the proposed alternative, which is, I just want to clarify, the proposed alternative is not to allow 75-foot building height. It's to allow the opportunity for an applicant who can demonstrate that it meets performance incentives to seek your approval of a 70-foot high building height. So there's an additional safeguard because that process takes place in the context of a special permit. And that's a determination you would make.
So just so I think the question we all have is, are you saying that if we accept the FEIS as proposed by Watchtower, it would still be the board's determination down the road with a special permit hearing as to whether to allow the six-story buildings or four-story buildings?
Yes.
So it's called, if we were to go ahead and vote on this, how many steps are we still to the finish line of this process? What are they?
The steps going forward from acceptance of the FEIS would be, first you would make a finding statement, a statement of findings pursuant to seeker of the environmental impacts. You would then weigh and balance those impacts against other considerations and determine what impacts must be mitigated. Following that, you could then proceed forward with the rezoning of the property as it's in its final form. Following that, you would then receive a special permit application from the applicant. You would review the special permit and a conceptual plan that supports the special permit and make determinations in the special permit process as to what building height is allowed, and whether the applicant has met the performance incentive standards. You would then approve a special permit that would then allow the applicant to proceed to the planning board, which were to review detailed site plan. Following that, the site plan approval, the applicant could, with all other agency approvals, proceed forward with its proposed development.
And the special permit, specifically with regard to the building height, that's within the discretion of the town board?
That is within the discretion of the town board. You cannot be, it's somewhat different than a legislative determination where you have relatively complete discretion. You're acting in an administrative capacity, but as long as you have a basis for your action in the record, you can make that determination that you feel is appropriate.
So I guess my final question, forgive me if this is redundant, but if we were to accept the FEIS tonight, we're not tying our hands when it comes to the issue of building height down the road.
No, that would be a part of the record. That would be something you would consider, the environmental analysis that has been done. You consider that during your site plan, your special permit process.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lithgow. Any questions for our council? Anybody prepared to make a motion at this time?
Don't make the motion. Except the areas to be forced to 45%.
There's a motion by Councilman Weissman to accept the FEIS with the four-story option or alternative.
And they wanted to raise that to the 6-story, what would happen?
Well, I don't think they can if we
Couldn't live that?
I don't think they can. Again, Mr. Lithgow, if I'm stating wrong, tell me, but I think that if we accept it with that limitation, then that ends that option. Is that correct?
And the option for
6 stories. Motion to accept the FEIS with the 4-story alternative. So if that motion carries by majority, that ends any option for the site of the 6 stories. Would that be out?
well,
Yeah.
not necessarily.
There's a lot.
You open up a can of worms. But if you rezone the property, and the zoning does not provide for greater building height than 45 feet, the applicant, like any other applicant, can make application for an area variance. If it does so, it has a tough road to hoe.
Area variance.
It's over.
To the zoning board, not to us.
Right. So it does have a tough road to hoe. It's asked for the zoning. One of the considerations the zoning board applies is whether or not it is a self-created hardship. But it's a different standard than the use variance. The use variance is if you've applied, if you've created the hardship, you're essentially disqualified from seeking your use variance.
Mr. Litko, if that becomes a condition of the zone change and becomes use variance, is that correct?
That's true. And you will also, if you're changing it to the 4-story, or what I call the conforming height requirement,
Or
you still have a special permit as part of your process, and you could make that a condition as well. So you do have safeguards, but the applicant can go to the zoning.
But just to sum it up very simply, if we accept the FEIS as proposed by Watchtower, we could still address the issue of 6 stories versus 4 stories of the special permit process. If we accept it with, as the motion suggests, with only the 4-story alternative, then barring a zoning board application and granting the variances, there's no option for 6 stories.
Yes.
I would add, this is Malcolm Simpson from Hardesty and Hanover. I would add, and George, correct me if I'm wrong, but one step before that, at findings, which is the step between this evening, accepting the FEIS as complete and the special permit, if while preparing your finding statement, you feel that you want to deviate from the 6-story alternative to the 4-story alternative, you could do that at that point as well.
Mr. Supervisor, I would add one point. If you are accepting that, if you're accepting the FEIS with the restriction on height, I believe it would be in everyone's interest to edit the FEIS to the extent necessary to make clear what the proposed action is. Because right now it's cast as a 75-foot high building that will be approved through the site plan process based on the lack of environmental impact.
So that should be part of the motion to edit the FEIS to reflect the
restriction that the board feels is appropriate to 45 feet.
all right, we have a motion by Councilman Weissman.
One other thing, how many projects are in that are you supposed to? Is that in its own right? And the group
Well, let me correct that. Because I just saw this afternoon, I think the MU2 does permit 4-story garden apartments.
when do we have?
I don't know if we have any built, there will probably some proposed, there will be proposed.
So even at this point,
Okay.
even at this point, the 4-story is kind of a dream that's not been done.
it's not the common.
I just, my feeling is this is a site-specific question, that if there's any site in town that would be appropriate for 4 or 6 stories, it would be shown in the site. I hear our planner and our land use attorney telling us that we don't have to make that decision now. We can accept the FEIS and then look at that either in the finding statement or the special permit process. But at this point, we have a motion. I'll ask if we have a second.
I just want to understand for a second with that. I don't know if you're over that for me. If we approve the 4-story right now, can they still go to the planning, the zoning board and rate it?
I believe that's what we were told.
Can we put a restriction on that?
I think
The very restriction should make it a use variance, not an area variance.
To clarify, you can put a restriction on your zoning the way that you did for the Pascack Ridge application. You have several conditions that were imposed as part of your rezoning action. And you can also, in the context of your special permit, make provision for the building height that you believe is appropriate. And that would be part of the plan that you would be approving, and any change that would require an amendment.
let me just
Which would come to us.
But ultimately, you can never stop an
Go to the zoning board.
So that you can't have restrictions that have to come up.
It's a restriction, which makes it very difficult, almost impossible to use variance on a solution project. It's very hard, very difficult.
Now, I'd just like to say
Is that
that,
what you're proposing?
I'm proposing right now, acceptance of this.
At 4.
Without,
without
I'm recommending to my colleagues that when we get to the next steps,
Then the restriction.
and that one.
so you're saying,
Go for it.
so your motion is to accept the FEIS with the 4-story alternative, not the 6-story. Okay. One thing, yes, Deputy
Question on the
Supervisor.
motion. I'd like to know what would be the reason to restrict the applicant from changing it from the 4 to the 6? Is there a reason?
What you're asking is a reason not to allow 4, not to allow 6.
Yes, sir. Is there, am I missing something?
Well, we don't have a second to the motion yet. I mean,
Okay.
procedurally, let me see, if we, I mean, it's a valid question, but I think we need, is there a second to the motion? So we have a second. So now your question is why, what is the reason for?
To restrict the applicant from going to 6 stories? Is there a reason?
A lot of them, just,
Excuse me, could you repeat that? I can't hear.
The question was by Deputy Supervisor Charles was, what is the reason for, restricting the height of the buildings to 4 stories instead of 6?
Did you hear that? You're muted, you're muted. The question was by Deputy Supervisor, why are you looking to restrict it to 4 and why not let it happen at 6? That was her question, because the motion is to approve the FEIS, but to restrict it to 4 floors.
Am I missing something? Is there a reason to?
Well, I think,
I think that I'm just looking to understand that the applicant is requesting to have a 6-story building. Or maybe I should ask Mr. Katie if he could clarify. Is that easier?
you can ask,
Can you clarify?
I think Mr. King will give you the reasons why the 6-story is preferable, but,
Right.
yeah.
I would like to know that as opposed to the 4-story. Why is that preferable, sir? Can you clarify, why you as a representative of the applicant? Or is that?
It's a function of the property.
Okay.
Property is so hilly, there's very little relatively 10% or less grade land on it. So because it is a 242 acre lot, but there's a small amount of it that's actually developable. And we're also trying to stay away from the ridge line, which was a requirement of our process. And we're also trying to keep the scenic view plane along the Sterling Line Road. So it's kind of narrowing down the kind of window of opportunity. We did visual impact studies of both the models, and as Mr. Emmanuel said on Monday, the lower height buildings actually end up having a higher absolute above sea level height. So there's a greater visual impact from other view planes in the area. So that is what led us to this as a solution that worked for this particular piece of property.
So if I'm, so if we suffer 4 stories, you would have to, I guess, increase the footprint to build out as opposed to up.
That's correct.
But it would give you additional units if you built up 6 stories. That is the factor of
The amount of built area, floor area, the number of units wouldn't change. There's no desire to go beyond what's included in the FEIS.
So building up would not change the amount of.
No,
Yeah.
that's the baseline. That's the
Okay.
benchmark that's in the application as it stands right now.
So given the fact of where this particular development is, and I've done many, and I'm on my 13th year here, in that particular area, with the trees surrounding it and Sterling Mine, you really wouldn't be able to even determine that the building would be that tall, because of where it's located. It would be different if you tried to build this project on Main Street, let's say Spring Valley, even though it's not the town, it's just that example. You couldn't do that here. But where you are, a 6-foot building would neither be here nor there because it's kind of tucked away and it doesn't give the appearance of it being a skyscraper. I don't want to be dramatic, but,
It's a valid question. So what we did, when we did the visual analysis of the project, we modeled both. We modeled a lower height spread out option and then the 6-story. It's actually 5 stories above a parking level. So we modeled that, and the view planes from Dagger Mountain spots in Harriman State Park and Sterling Lake Forest, from those spots, it was more visible, the lower alternative, because the footprint of the project widened out. And to do that, again, because it's such a steep slope property, the development moved farther up the hillside. And so therefore, it was actually more visible than the taller height buildings that were on the smaller footprint. So that was the reason.
and I do believe that that is the case only because I took the liberty of, again, going back and looking at our most recent project that was done, which is now called Woodrow. And because it is 3 stories, but it sits on a hill, so the appearance is that it is higher, but there is nothing there. There's no trees, there's nothing. So coming from 17, it's very visible and it does appear to be very high. But in this case, I think that would be different because I took the extra 8-mile drive to see the trees around it. And it's really a big difference in that it would probably be the same, except you wouldn't be able to see it because it's surrounded by trees. But I just wanted to know what the difference was.
That's it.
I don't think that I got that number. So thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keating. So any further questions or discussion from the board? The motion has been seconded to accept the FEIS with the alternative of 4-story buildings only. So we, the vote those, Madam Clerk?
Roll
Roll call. So let's do roll call vote.
Councilor Wonderful?
Yeah.
Councilor Whiteman? Councilor Wilson? Michael?
He has to unmute.
No, you say something.
You have to unmute yourself, Michael.
I don't think he can.
Unmute.
You can hear. There you go.
Repeat the question.
The roll call, are you going, are you agreeing with the vote?
Well, do you understand the motion? The motion is to accept the FEIS, but with the restriction on the height of the buildings to be 4 stories instead of 6.
Was it seconded?
Yes.
Yes, we're voting.
The roll call.
Wait a minute. Who seconded it?
Councilman Wyman seconded it.
Now, Councilor Whiteman made the motion and Councilman Wonderful seconded.
And they voted it.
And then it
They
was
voted.
voted upon.
They voted yes in favor of the motion. Now it's up to you. Your turn.
I gotta think about it a minute.
Should we play the Jeopardy theme?
We can continue on the roll call.
Are we able to go on to the next,
Councilman Charles, Deputy Supervisor Charles?
you vote, I'm sorry. I didn't-
No.
Oh, you voted no. Okay, let's go back to Councilman Rossman. So it's aye, nay so far.
Did you hear me?
Yes.
Very clearly.
No.
So there's 2 ayes, 2 noes, and I will vote no. So this time the motion doesn't carry. Is there another motion anybody wishes to make?
I'd like to make a motion, Supervisor, that allow the FEIS approval as for the 6-story,
To the FEIS as submitted.
as submitted for 6 stories.
For a second.
So I got a question. If we accept that motion, we still can discuss if it's gonna be 4 or 6. Is that right?
No.
No. So Mr. Rossman, can you hear me?
Yeah.
The deputy supervisor has now made a motion to accept the FEIS as is with 6 floors. That's where you're up to. She made the motion, and now we're waiting to hear if there's any second.
I second, but I got a question. If we accept it, can we still discuss the 6-story, 4-story?
Well, I believe what our professional said is that we can discuss that in both the finding statement and in the special permit process. I'll ask Mr. Simpson, is that accurate?
Is there a time frame that we have to accept the 6 and the 4? Or?
In order, can I just clarify the issue here?
Well,
In order for you to allow a building taller than 45 feet, which is the general standard in the town, you must make affirmative findings that the proposed incentives have been satisfied. There are specific conditions in the special permit process. And unless you make findings that those requirements have been addressed satisfactorily to you, you would not approve the additional height. And you can approve something less, you can approve 60 feet if you determine that's able to meet the standards, but 75 feet is not. You have that option.
Okay, so can you repeat the motion, please, so I can decide?
So there's a motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles to accept the FEIS as submitted, which contemplates the 6-story buildings.
Okay, I second.
So we have a motion and a second. We'll call the roll.
Councilman Weisman?
Close.
Councilman Wonderful? Councilman Grossman?
Yes.
Deputy Supervisor Charles? Yes. Supervisor Smith?
Yes. So a motion carries by vote of 3-2. So Mr. Lithgow, what happens now?
We'll prepare it for circulation. There are some text revisions that I think are appropriate, which are not policy matters I believe that the board will require to review. I would suggest, as you did with the DIS, that the FEIS be accepted subject to final review by the supervisor and then circulated. There is no public comment period normally, unless you wish to have one. So it would just be circulated and filed.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Lithgow. Okay, we'll move on to the regular rest of the agenda then. We'll go back to item 3A, acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting that was held March 9th.
Mr. Supervisor, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Hello?
Yes, we hear you.
I got a private matter that I got to attend to. Can I be excused for the rest of the meeting?
We appreciate you taking time out of your private engagement to be here tonight for an hour and 15 minutes. We appreciate your input and participation tonight, and we will see you soon.
Okay, have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
So the record will reflect that Councilman Boston has left the meeting. We'll go to item 3A, motion to accept the minutes of the regular meeting that was held March 9th, 2022. Motion, Deputy Supervisor Charles, second Councilman Westman, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Carried 4-0. Item B, special meeting minutes of March 15th, 2022. Motion, Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded Councilman Westman, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Carried 4-2. And then item 3C, special meeting of March 21st, 2022. Motion, Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded Councilman Weissman, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Carried 4-0. We'll go to item 4, Town Attorney, and we'll go to Ms. Slater, our Town Attorney on Zoom.
Good evening. The first item is acceptance of an easement at 16 Cedar Lane. This is a 5-foot wide shade tree easement. It's highlighted on the attached map in blue. We would recommend acceptance of this.
Since you any questions for Ms. Slater?
And all of the board members should have received full-size maps this week as well.
Okay, motion, Deputy Supervisor Charles, do we have a second? Second, Councilman Westmoreland, all in favor, aye. Anyone opposed, anyone abstaining, carried 4-0. Item B.
The next item is acceptance of easements at 3 Lane Street. There's a 5-foot wide shade tree easement and a stormwater inspection easement. There's 3 maps that were provided. There's different easements on each of them. Actually, I think so the map that
Well, we'll stop that right there. They're getting into other town matters, but anyways, I'm glad you came in. I'm sorry for the bad video. You know, this town meeting, they have Zoom on and everyone's speaking out of place and they got different microphones. It was just terrible. I hope you can at least hear it. So what I got from the meeting, just to kind of recap it, is I did get a chance earlier to come in. They shut me down. They wouldn't let me talk anything about what the Watchtower is involved with. They said that's going to take place on March 27th, which how can it be? It's a Sunday. So evidently next Monday, there's going to be another meeting. And I'm going to try to get back in next time and see if we can't get better quality. I think if I take it off of my phone rather than going through the StreamYard, it might even be better because I couldn't, it wouldn't let me share the stream. Normally I could share the stream from any other browser, but I could not do it this time around. So we will be back hopefully next Monday night if all goes well, and I should be able to get a better feed. But anyways, from what I gather is the Watchtower, they're trying to change the rules here. They've been going back and forth to the town, and originally they wanted, from what I can gather here, a 6-story building, and that's how high it was going to be. But then they wanted to change it, I guess, to 4 stories, but with the opportunity or with a permit to spread it out wider, use more land, but keep it 4 stories. So that's basically what they were discussing here tonight. So they voted on it, but they have to stay evidently with their 6 stories and not be able to build out unless they get a special permit. That's what I got. I mean, I could be wrong, but there's so much gibber-gabbage going on, but that's what I got from it, is they were trying to change the rules. So we'll see what happens with all of this. And hopefully, I mean, there were some people in the beginning that were quite upset about what was happening. There wasn't any other people who were ex-witnesses in there talking. And of course, they wouldn't let us talk anyways. As soon as I came in with environmental issues. I did say that I was concerned because I do have relatives that live up there in the Ramapo area, and I have visited on a number of occasions, and it's beautiful, pristine land. And I said, you know, by urbanizing it or by allowing a big movie studio to come in here, it's going to turn this whole area into a city. The poor townspeople won't have their little town left. So I tried to get, they listened to part of that, but we brought up the idea that people should know who the Watchtower is. They should know who their neighbor is. They shut me right down. And they did that the last time too. The last time that I went into one of these meetings back in last May, 2021, they shot me down then. So what I did ask them tonight is, you know, when do I get a chance to speak up? When does the public get a chance to tell you more things they're concerned with than just environmental issues? So they said on the 27th, but they must have meant the 28th. So I'm going to be back in. He said it's a public meeting then, and you can speak up then. So I'm going to call them tomorrow to make sure that that's the case, and I'll book back in, and I'm going to hold them to it. And if I don't get to speak up, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to file a lawsuit, but I'll tell you what, something's not right. It's almost, friends, you know, I don't want to say it, but I think there's a lot of payola going on here. Seriously. This seems to be the Watchtower is basically, have already asked for, even before the permits have been approved, the Watchtower has been asking for camping trailers and RVs to be donated to them. So people who are coming up to work on the project could stay in the RVs and trailers. I mean, that's a little presumptuous, isn't it? That's before they even got the permit. So, you know, that I wouldn't doubt one bit. We know the Watchtower is corrupt, and I wouldn't doubt one bit, folks. I wouldn't doubt one bit if there's some payola going on here. This looks like it's gonna get passed through, but boy, I know this is the last vestige of hope. If the Watchtower doesn't pull this off, they're really a dead religion, a dead cult, if you would. But they're gonna pull this off, I think, I hope not. But if they do pull it off, we're going to see them get new recruits. It's just going to happen. They're going to do this TV, this live streaming, evangelizing, and they're going to get people. There's a sucker born every minute. So, hopefully we have another shot at it. I might even go up there personally myself, but I'm going to try to get this Zoom thing straightened out. I mean, their quality, this town meeting, their Zoom, gee, someone's going to run it. They're all on different microphones. You can hardly, some people you can hear, some people you can't hear. It's not a good quality at all. But it's a small town. It's only a very, very small town in New York. Well, that seems to be it. I wish I had more to share with you. I wish I could tell you they was shut down. But in one way, I think they ticked the town off a little bit tonight. What they did is they had a set of plans that they've already have been approved by the board, the town board of planning. And yet at the same time, they came in tonight wanting to change it somewhat. And they did get shot down on that. So that's good. So folks, we'll see you Saturday night on the news. That's coming up here a few days. JW World News, we'll talk more about it. I'll get some sound clips. I'll try to get some sound clips and play it to you then. But I want to thank you all for coming in and being here tonight. And you guys just keep standing tall, keep waving that flag of victory. And the last one, leaving the Watchtower, please turn off the new light. Good night now.